Alright, Shoulder for Believers, welcome back to the continuation of our Revelation study in Revelation chapter 10. That's where we're at now. We finished up chapter 9 last time, so if you go ahead and head over there in your scriptures, we'll go ahead and get into it. A lot to talk about, a lot to go through. Might be a bit confusing at first, but we're going to try our best to get through this with everybody understanding what we're talking about here. Alright. Okay. Alright, we're all clear to go. Alright, verse number 1. And I saw another mighty angel come down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, and a rainbow was upon his head, and his face was as it were the sun, and his feet as pillars of fire. Immediately, for some of you that are Bible students, that have perhaps been studying the Revelation, perhaps you've been studying Jesus Christ in particular, you might have already seen perhaps a interpretation already. There are many, including teachers that I looked up to in the past, that believe that this mighty angel is a appearance of Christ in the tribulation period, which immediately causes problems, because Christ does not return until chapter 19. So who is this mighty angel that has attributes of God himself? Attributes of Christ even. Is this a member of the Godhead? I really don't believe so. He's described as a mighty angel for a reason. This angel is probably the same angel who appeared in the Old Testament frequently. We'll talk about that in a minute, of where he probably came from. In Exodus 13:21, we see that the Lord himself shrouds himself with a cloud for reasons, because his glory would kill people around him if they could view him without the cloud. So he shrouded himself in the cloud and walked before them, and as a pillar of fire by night, and this is how he led them out of the land of Egypt. So this angel is covered with a cloud. However, this still doesn't mean it has anything to do with God the Father or Jesus Christ the Son, necessarily. Next part of the verse says he has a rainbow upon his head. For those of you that have been keeping up, in Revelation 4:3, there is a rainbow around the throne. So again, it would appear that this is pointing to the Lord. His face was as it were the sun. Numbers 6:25 says that the Lord's face shines. I mean, that's in the Transfiguration and even the Old Testament. Feet as pillars of fire. Now, I will bring this up. The way that the English is turned into from this verse, we see an issue. Unless the word that was translated here, and I really don't believe this, I really don't know, to be honest, if the word feet, the word that it came from, meant anywhere from your foot, what we call your foot, all the way to the top of your leg. Because who ever heard of feet looking like pillars? That's your legs. There are, from what I've heard, about maybe one or two Greek words, and a Hebrew word perhaps, that comes from this passage, which definitely points to the legs. So what we might be looking at is just a suggestion, is an error in the English translations in translating from feet when it's supposed to be legs. Because the bottom, unless the feet that they got it from, the translated word was including your feet and your legs, which might make some sense, but I don't know if that exists as a word, though. I'm not skilled in grammar in Greek or Hebrew, so that's just left in the air. Maybe you'll do research on your own and tell me something. So, pillars of fire. feet. That was seen back in Revelation 1, wasn't it? Verse 15. The Lord's feet looks like burning brass. Interesting, right? Alright, let's continue to look at the description. Verse 2. And he had in his hand a little book open, and he set his right foot upon the sea, and his left foot upon the earth. Interesting position he's taking here. Now, the book that he holds. There are two interpretations that I've heard as to what this book is. Actually, maybe in a part 3. Maybe 3 interpretations. Let's go over all 3. We talked about back in Jeremiah 32, we talked about the book that God the Father was holding in his hand. The book of the Lamb that only the Lamb could open, sealed with 7 seals, the giant scroll. In Jeremiah 32, we see a hint of this book, but it's not by itself. It comes with a second copy that's open, not closed. And we do see that there is an open book in his hand. So, that could work. However, someone might also say that this open book is the 7 sealed scroll that's finally been opened. However, there's an issue. In the translation, the small scroll, the word for it is, I'll put in the chat, Bibliabrium. I'm sorry, it's hard for me to say it. My tongue rolls too much. Alright. Now, the word for scroll in Revelation 5:1 is biblion. This testifies to their size. The closed one was bigger than this open one. So they can't be the same scroll. Okay? They're different sizes. Now, the other interpretation we will get to in the future, which is in the future of this chapter. So when I'm not going to put a loop on you, we're gonna go over that in this session. What I believe it is. Notice he has his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the earth. This angel is declaring dominance over the earth. When you put your foot on as the old saying goes, when you put your foot on the sea and your foot on the land, you're basically saying, I'm not cussing here when I say this, I'm actually saying it in the biblical tense, come hell or come high water, I'm going to serve God. Basically, you're saying, I'm planting myself firmly prepared for an invasion or something of, temptation. However, that's not what he's doing here. He appears to be asserting his dominance. This is no ordinary angel. Verse 3. And cried with a loud voice, as when a lion roareth. And when he had cried, 7 thunders uttered their voices. Alright. Ezekiel 43:2. Let's go there right quick. The noise of the Lord sounds like many waters. Okay? But Psalms 50, verses 2 to 6. Alright? Notice this. He shall call to the heavens from above and to the earth, that he may judge the people. That's in verse 4, the passage I just posted. Some assert from this passage that the Lord himself descends in the middle of the tribulation period. That sounds very, very stretched, and I don't really believe it for a minute. I really think this is a twisting of Scripture, perhaps. So I don't think this is the Lord at all. Matter of fact, I think this is somebody you should be very familiar with, because maybe you read about him, but you just didn't pick up on all the facts at first. You may have read about him, but we'll get into who he might be, who I can get behind on who he is. But let's get to the 7 thunders that uttered their voices. Now, there's interpretations of this as well. Because we find out in the next verse, John is forbidden to write down what they say. Okay, let's go ahead and look at that next verse. And when the seven thunders had uttered their voices, I was about to write, and I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, Seal up those things which the seven thunders uttered, and write them not. John, for the first time, is told, do not write what you have heard. This is something I don't want you to put down in writing. For maybe two reasons. One, he wants to keep something secret about the tribulation period, if it has anything to do with that. Or two, this one's weird a little bit, I will admit. Or two, John heard heavenly voices saying things he couldn't really comprehend, and if he did write them down, we wouldn't understand them. It might seem weird to some of you, might make sense to the rest of you, I don't know, but I seem to lean towards the first part. What if, this is just a what if, the seven thunders are seven judgments themselves, but they're kept silent as to what they are? That's been an interpretation among some Revelation teacher, at least one that I know, and he's very brilliant. I could get behind that if there's proof for it. Some say they might be the seven voices of Psalms 29. Let's go ahead and post those verses. Psalms 29, verse 1 through 11. You will see that there are seven voices in Psalms 29. The voice of the Lord is upon the waters. The voice of the Lord is powerful. The voice of the Lord is full of majesty. The voice of the Lord breaketh the cedars. And so on. The voice of the Lord divideth the flames of fire. The voice of the Lord makes the hinds to calve. So, is this the seven voices, the seven praises? Well, why wouldn't John be allowed to write them if they're already been written down? So this is something mysterious. This is something we cannot figure out, because it very well could be a hidden part of Revelation we're not meant to know. So, even if you make a bunch of Old Testament references, I doubt you'll find out yourself. Maybe you might have some good ideas, but I don't think we'll ever figure this out. Verse 5. And the angel which I saw stand upon the sea and upon the earth lifted up his hand to heaven. So, as you can imagine, his one foot's in the sea, one foot's on the land. And suddenly he lifts his hands to heaven. One of them. He's holding the book in one hand, he's got his hand up in the air. Interesting position. Let's go to the next verse to find out what he's doing. Verse 6. And swear by him that liveth forever and ever, who created heaven and the things that are therein are, and the earth and the things that therein are, and the sea and the things which are therein, that there should be time no longer. Whoa. Matthew 5:34. Jesus tells us you are not supposed to swear by heaven, but this angel is. It says no man. So, what's special about this angel? We'll get into that in just a minute, actually. But this suddenly connects with a vision in Daniel chapter 12. Let's go look at that verse right quick. Daniel 12:7. And I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for a time, times, and a half. When we shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. Interesting. Someone clothed in linen from the Old Testament is here, holding up his hands to heaven, and he's saying the amount of time for what we might call the tribulation period. And now we see a similar figure standing here with his hand in the sky saying, time's over, or time's up, or something like that. But what time is up? The tribulation period still has 7 bowls to go through, 7 bowl judgments. What's he saying this for? This is a little tricky, but first let's address the elephant in the room. Who is this angel? Alright. let us turn to, let's see, Exodus 23, verse 20. In this passage, the Lord is very much angry with Israel. And he tells Moses, I am not going to hang around you personally. I got somebody else in mind. Behold, I send an angel before thee to keep thee in the way, and to bring thee into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him, and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions. For my name is in him. But if thou shalt indeed obey his voice and do all that I speak, then I will be an enemy unto thine enemies, and an adversary unto thine adversaries. This is a special angel commissioned to Israel. But it's no ordinary angel. This angel has the name of God written in him. In other words, God operates directly through him. It's a big mystery why the Lord chose an angel to be this. Again, we're not going to go through all those interpretations because I'm sure there's a lot that I'm not aware of, but this angel seems to fit the description of the Old Testament angel given to Israel. What's his job? To see Israel through. The name of God is in him, therefore he is above the natural angel. He might have even been the same angel that was actually standing in front of the throne to ask who can open up the book from earlier chapters. Could have been the same one. And he could be the same angel that was in Daniel. But some say that's actually Jesus Christ, and I can see both sides, so I won't get into that. Alright? Verse 7. But in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God shall be finished, as he hath declared to his servants, the prophets. There's a mystery being completed. A mystery that this angel is declaring is getting ready to be fulfilled. There are many mysteries in the Bible. There's a whole bunch of them. Which mystery is it? Is it the mystery of the restraining evil? Is it the mystery of iniquity? What mystery, Babylon? What mystery is this? Well, there's different views on this. However, check out Deuteronomy 32, verse 39 through 43. See now that I, even I, am he, and there is no God with me. I kill and I make alive, I wound and I heal, neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand. For I lift up my hand to heaven, and I say I live forever. If I whet my glittering sword, and mine hand take hold on judgment, I will render vengeance to my enemies. I will reward them that hate me. I will make mine arrows drunk with blood, and my sword shall devour flesh, and that with the blood of the slain and of the captives from the beginning of revenges upon the enemy. Rejoice, all ye nations, with his people, for he will avenge the blood of his servants, and will render vengeance to his adversaries, and will be merciful unto his land and to his people. There is an old promise that the Lord will lift up his hand and to heaven, and when he does this, he will render vengeance to his enemies. Now, this is interesting, because remember in the previous chapters, when we saw the souls under the altar saying, Lord, how long until you avenge us? Basically with his wrath. Has it happened yet? Well, the trumpet judgments sure do show a bit of that. But the bowl judgments are far worse. So, I believe what we're seeing here is the angel is saying this: it's time for vengeance to be exacted. It's time for the righteous to be given what's due. They need to be revenged for what's happening. That seems to be what's going on. This is a very difficult verse because there's so many mysteries in Scripture. Many of them have nothing to do with this moment, though. But Deuteronomy 32 does seem to bring it out. And like I said, we're not going to get everything right. There's no way we're going to get every detail right. But that seems to be one of the best course of actions to go with in this verse. Because this is not time for the Lord to come back. The Lord still has to wait until these 7 other judgments. Alright. Verse 8. And the voice which I heard from heaven spake in me again, and said, Go and take the little book which is open in the hand of the angel which standeth upon the sea and upon the earth. Interesting. The Father from heaven speaks to John and says, Walk up to this angel and take the book from him. John might have stuttered a moment, because this angel probably caught him in awe. Like, wow, look at this. So, but John's seen a lot worse. I mean, he's seen some pretty bad stuff. He's seen millions of men in one army. He's seen all kinds of scenes, so he might be bold by now, I don't know. But anyways, verse 9, And I went unto the angel and said unto him, Give me the little book. And he said unto me, Take it and eat it up. And it shall make thy belly bitter, but it shall be in thy mouth sweet as honey. Interesting. What does this mean? We know that according to Psalms 119, verse 103, that the Lord's words taste like honey. John is eating a tiny scroll. He's eating the small scroll, and there's something on it. He's eating it, it tastes sweet, but when it hits his stomach, it's bitter, and it upsets his stomach. Let's go to verse 10 to find out just that. And I took the little book out of the angel's hand and ate it up, and it was in my mouth sweet as honey, and as soon as I had eaten it, my belly was bitter. Jeremiah 15:16, he said, When I found the words of the Lord, I ate them. In other words, he took them in. Okay? In Ezekiel, this is interesting. The Lord shows Ezekiel a scroll and tells him to eat it. And it tasted like honey, but yet it never said anything about making his belly bitter. So this is interesting, without a doubt. What is this scroll that he just ate? What's the whole purpose of this? What's the scene? Thankful to God, there was actually a Jewish teacher that kind of helped put this together for me. And I think you guys will find this very interesting. Go to Numbers 5. I can't post all the verses, so if you have a physical Bible with you, we're going to read this together. It's going to take a little bit, but we're going to get through it. Numbers 5. Remember, if we're going to interpret something in Revelation, we have to go back to the Old Testament, and we usually find it being fulfilled in the past. Numbers 5. We're going to find an interesting ritual here. I'll explain the ritual, and if you want to read the verses, look about from verse 16, and you can read this verse on your own sometime, maybe not right now. If you want to, you can. But let's get to the object at hand. What is the little book? In Numbers 5, verse 12 to 31, there is a ritual for a woman accused of adultery. Like I said, Logan, it's too big to put on there. I mean, I don't know if I exactly said that, but yeah, just read it on your own if you can. Just a little bit of it. I'm going to summarize it for you, don't worry. I have the notes right here. What would happen is if a woman was called in for adultery, she's guilty. At least she's being accused by her husband. The husband brings her in. So the high priest, whether she was guilty or not, he would take an earthen vessel and fill it with water, which was called holy water. Now, why was it called holy water? Because the water came from the priest's reservoir of water that they used to wash their feet and hands. This was dedicated water to priests only, therefore it was called holy. He would take water from there, put it in the cup. Gets better. He then takes a scroll, writes down the curses mentioned in the passage. If she's committed adultery, he puts the curses in and takes the water and washes the writing off of the scroll and gives it to her to drink. If she drinks it and she's guilty. Oh, I forgot to mention this step. He would also go to the temple floor and get dust up and put it in the cup as well. If she was guilty, her belly would swell. If she wasn't, nothing would happen. And sometimes it could take a while to find out. It may sound like a weird ritual, but the point of the ritual points to the future. All these rituals do. Now, look at Jeremiah 3:8, and we're going to try to put 2 and 2 together. We're going to attempt to do this. And I saw, when for all the causes whereby backsliding Israel committed adultery, I had put her away and given her a bill of divorce, yet her treacherous sister Judah feared not, but went and played the harlot also. The Lord said Israel committed adultery against him. So, with that said, are we seeing here John being given to eat the scroll of the curses of adultery on Israel? Because remember, the tribulation period is called the time of Jacob's trouble. It's the time for Israel because she rejected her Messiah. So she is an adulteress. So therefore, this scroll may very well be what John just ate. This could be the effect of the adultery of Israel. She's guilty, therefore it tastes bitter when it hits his stomach. Might sound a little weird, but it can work. I really believe it can. This also has another interpretation which is kind of interesting. It might work hand in hand, it might not. But Ezekiel, after he ate that scroll, after Ezekiel ate the scroll, he was told to go and prophesy what he basically just ate. He was told to go out and tell people what he just ate. And it would come out of him, basically. And he would tell people. Notice the last verse of the passage. And he said unto me, Thou must prophesy again before many peoples, and nations, and tongues, and kings. He's given this scroll to eat, and a prophecy to tell, to many people, nations, tongues, and kings. So, all together with the notes that we have, we're going to try to get through this and break it down for those of you maybe that missed it. But this is recorded. Now, the angel is the angel of the Old Testament assigned to Israel, the one that had the name of God in him. The book is possibly the curse or the proof of adulterement of Israel, or it could be a prophecy. And lastly, a little preamble into the next chapter. We will be discussing partially the 2 witnesses and the third temple's measurements. So that's going to be some interesting topics to get into. But like I said, we're not going to get everything right here. This Revelation's a tough one. It's really not the easiest one to get through, but I hope we're learning something here, because a lot of this points back to the Old Testament. So rituals are being pointed to, feasts are getting pointed to, the tribes themselves are getting pointed to. There's a lot of Old Testament being quoted. So it's not for naught. There is good learning in Revelation, even if you don't understand every single trumpet, every single vial, every single event. It all comes down to a head to Christ's return. So that concludes chapter 10, and thank you guys for listening.